Hi, this is Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson.
What's up, everybody? I'm Matt Leinart, 2004 Heisman Trophy winner.
Hey, I'm Zane Gonzalez.
Hi, I'm Matt Barry from ESPN. You're getting ready to watch one of the best college football podcasts ever. It's the Harris Highlight Show.
You're watching the Harris Highlight Show.
And you're watching the Harris Highlight Show.
And you're listening to the Harris Highlight Show. Enjoy it.
Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na.
Coming to you live from Monrovia, California, this is the Harris Highlight Show. Joining this week is our college football analyst, Josh Schaefer, our college football expert, Lyle Goldstein, our not executive producer, Brady Klein, and I'm your host for the evening, Blake Harris. Guys, we're going to throw it over to Brady's screen. So, not Brady Klein, how are you doing this evening?
Hey, not Brady Klein is doing very well. Can't complain. Let's see, the college football team I cover, is 12th in the country according to the college football playoff. That's great. I'm glad there's two lost teams ahead of that. But, I can't complain. There are better teams out there, I guess, than, a one-loss Indiana team. So,
Hoosiers insider Griffin Gonzalez in the house.
Huge fan. Josh, great to see you.
It's good to see you too, man. I just got a text message from Brady Klein and said it's the younger, skinnier, and more handsome version of me.
I'm gonna 100% agree with that sentiment. Yeah.
Well, who the hell's Brian?
That's what I want to know about this right here. Oh boy!
Fire.
Good to see you, Griffin.
Everyone wants to know what happened to Brady, so don't worry, everyone in the comments. Brady's.
I'm right here.
Thank goodness, people. Thank goodness, Brady's back.
All right, guys, we got a fun show.
Guess who's back?
Week.
Back again.
Unfortunately. The college football playoff rankings, they just came out about 45 minutes ago, so we're going to be talking about that tonight. A whole lot on our slate tonight. So, guys, we're going to be going over the college football playoff rankings, the latest, what our thoughts are on them and whatnot, just like we did last week. We're also going to be talking about college football playoff games in the past and how, for the most part, every year, most of those games have been absolute blowouts, and whether or not having every playoff game in the past be a blowout, is that something that actually works in the favor of BYU and Cincinnati and all these group of 5 teams? We're also going to be talking about the Ohio State situation, whether or not Michigan is going to go into full savage mode, make sure they cancel their game next week, and screw Ohio State out of the Big Ten title game, potentially out of the college football playoff. Plus, we got Stars of the Week. We got Uni Watch. We have some recaps from this past weekend at games. We got Blake's bets. We got Pick'ems, Q&A. It's a jam-packed show, guys. Am I missing something? Did I forget something? Because there was a whole bunch there, so...
I think this is going to be a jolly old time. I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready for a great show.
All right, let's have some fun. So, Brady, if you can, get up that graphic of the top 6. As Brady said in the group chat, fantastic. I don't have to do any work this week. Now, Brady, we want to make sure you do as least work as possible every week. So the playoff committee was very helpful for you this week. So,
Thanks,
guys, the top 6, it stayed exactly the same. No real surprise in regards to that, which, by the way, before we get to our thoughts on these top 6 rankings. If there's anything in regards to the college football playoff rankings you'd like to hear our thoughts on, whether a team's too high, whether a team's too low, whether a team's not ranked, or a team should be ranked, anything like that, our own personal thoughts, you guys can donate to the super chat. Again, it's as little as 99 cents, $1. You guys can come. It'll have a nice huge color that'll pop up on the screen. That way we can see it. We can answer you guys' questions. I mean, right now the live chat's going absolutely nuts. There's about 50 to 60, I think, comments that go through every minute, so we can't see them all. This way it helps us see your question, helps us, support the show moving forward. So again, you guys can hit us up in that super chat or become Patreon members as well. I'll get the notification on that. So
most definitely do that, because last week we had over 2,000 comments on the show.
Yeah, so
live comments.
2,000 live comments is a lot to go through. So again, if there's anything you'd like to hear our thoughts on, hit us up in that super chat. Guys, I'll just throw it to you. Whoever wants to kick things off. Were you guys surprised at all that it stayed exactly the same? Or did you think there should have been a little movement in regards to these top 6 rankings?
If A&M did not end up holding on against LSU the way that they did, I would not have been surprised to see Florida hop over A&M. And when we're looking at these top 6, I'll say the same thing I said last week. Look, personally, I think I would have Florida and A&M swapped. In fact, I think I would have Cincinnati at 6 instead of 7 and put A&M at 7. But again, like I said last week, this makes sense. Like, logically, the playoff committee is showing that they care about the head-to-head matchups and what happens in those games. So regardless of the fact that Florida, other than that last-second loss to A&M, has looked like a far better team than the Aggies, they're putting them at 5 and they're putting Florida at 6 because they're trying to set that precedent of the head-to-head matchups mattering. And if that's what they're going to do, then I think they knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I don't think there's that much to say, considering it all stayed the same in the top 6 or the top 7 for that matter. And like they kind of talked about when the show started, is between the whole A&M Florida dilemma, it's going to play itself out come the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say this. I think I said this in our show last weekend about how, whatever reason, I received a lot of hate in regards to the Texas A&M, how I talked about them in one of my videos saying that they should not be at 5. I did the same this week, and everyone came out of the woodworks. It's like I offended every Texas A&M fan. They struggled this week against...
Wouldn't be the first time you offended everybody, Blake.
Well, that's also true. We know that's the truth. Texas A&M, they struggled this past weekend. I mean, if there's any Texas A&M fans in here, we're going to be seeing them come into the live chat shortly. Texas A&M, they struggled to beat LSU. I get there was apparently like a monsoon. When I was watching the game, you could tell it was having an impact. But LSU is an awful team. They are absolutely an awful team. This is someone that you should beat by at least 20 to 30 points, especially if you're a top 5 team in the country. A lot of people have come out and they've said things, Texas A&M dominated this game. They allowed them to score a few touchdowns late at the end. I was looking back and watching some of the highlights. I think it was like the Mississippi State game. They allowed Mississippi State to score a touchdown with like 14 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I don't think that's really in garbage time when you're starting the fourth quarter. Texas A&M, again, I've watched them. I haven't watched every snap they've played all season, but I've watched a good amount. And again, they're top 12, top 10 team in the country, not number 5. I get the committee likes the head-to-head, A&M and Florida. I think we all can agree, the 4 of us guys, and I'm sure a lot of people in the comments are going to agree as well. Florida has looked like the better team throughout all of 2020. I get A&M has that head-to-head win, but I don't think a head-to-head win necessarily means you're a better team than the other. Well, I'm sure you can agree to this. Notre Dame, they beat Clemson. I don't know if we're going to, claim Notre Dame is the better overall team than Clemson just because they beat them head-to-head. So I don't like that they use that as the logic for having them above them. I think Florida's a better team. And even though I don't think A&M is as good as they're ranked, Ohio State didn't play this past weekend. They have, 3 games I think they've played so far on the schedule. They did beat Indiana, but at this point, I think I'd put A&M at 4, Florida at 5, and Ohio State at 6, just for the sole reason we've barely seen Ohio State play, and when we have seen them play, they haven't been as good. Again, it's still early on in these rankings, so it doesn't necessarily matter at this point, but if I was voting, if I had to vote, that's how I'd go. I'd have Florida at 4, A&M at 5, and I'd put Ohio State at 6 just because we haven't seen much of them yet.
I don't totally disagree with you. I do think that Ohio State is better than both Florida and A&M, but I think that your logic actually makes a lot of sense here. And this is something that I said, a while back. Like,
what's the point of dropping Oregon in the rankings right now when we're still not expecting to see the Pac-12 play for another 3-4 weeks? And why are we having Ohio State jump into the rankings at number 3 when we aren't going to see them in a couple more weeks? And that's how it was earlier this season. So yeah, like I thought that eventually we're going to get these teams drop into the rankings where they probably deserve to be. But yeah, I guess based off that logic, what you said makes a lot of sense. I think it's fine how it is now, like I said, and like Lyle said too. I think it's fine how it is, and I think that Ohio State is eventually, like, if they keep playing these games, they're going to prove that they deserve to be where they're at right now. Because if you think about it, this Ohio State team could be very easily 6-0 right now. And yeah, they had that close game to Indiana, so you could be 6-0. They could be 6-0. They had the close game against IU. Not only could they be 6-0, they could be 5-1. They could be 3-1 right now. So I don't know. I think they're fine where they're at. But again, like if you have like another close game right here, if you're Ohio State or you don't beat somebody convincingly, and say Florida does or say A&M does, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing them flip around a little bit.
The one thing that I'll say pretty quickly on this is you see these teams, we saw further down in the rankings, we saw a team, which we'll talk about in a minute, lose and go up in the rankings somehow. And the one thing that I was curious to see if the committee would do is if they would move Ohio State to a 5 or 6 spot and put either Florida or A&M in there. Like Josh said a minute ago, I think we can all agree that Florida is the better team than A&M. The head-to-head is why there's 5 versus 6. But, you know, if any weeks this week, could you have considered putting A&M or Florida in that 4 spot just as a placeholder for an Ohio State team that didn't play? No, it's different if a team were on a bye week, then I get you should stay there. But, you know, a forced bye week like what happened to Ohio State this week, I think would have been considered and maybe even was considered by the committee. But that was the only question mark that I had going into this rankings. I think we could all pretty much concur that the top 6, top 7 with Cincinnati in there as well would be the same as what we saw last week. Just the order of it was the one thing that I questioned.
Yeah, the only thing I think I mentioned this on a show maybe like last year is the fact I hate when we take into consideration what a team did last year or what's expected out of a team this year. Because if you just took someone off the street, they have no knowledge of college football whatsoever, and you give them Ohio State, you show them the 4 games they've played. I mean, again, a very impressive win over Indiana. However, I think we all can agree Indiana, you can make the case they should have won that game. They made more mistakes than Ohio State. They could have come out on top. Ohio State, what else are they clinging on to this year? A win against Nebraska, a close win against Penn State that's looking awful now, and a win against Rutgers. They haven't essentially proven anything aside from that. Where you go to Florida, I get, they had that close loss to Texas A&M, which, again, I still think they're the better team, but they've blown everyone out. They have a huge win against Georgia, who the committee now I think has at 8. So that's a huge win right there. I get it. People think Ohio State, they're probably a top 4 team in the country, but you need to go based off what you've seen so far this year. Mm-hmm. And you can make the case, again, I'm not high on A&M. A&M has played better than Ohio State this year. Florida's played better than Ohio State, and Cincinnati's played better than Ohio State.
A&M hasn't lost. I mean, A&M lost, like they got killed by Bama. Ohio State,
but I mean, aside from that, though, there are other 6 games, especially defensively. Defensively, I think A&M's a top 5 defense in the country. They're elite. It's just their offense that is laughable.
Well, they also beat Vandy by 5 at home.
Oh, trust me,
I'm not a big A&M person.
Oh, trust me, no. I'm just saying at this point of the season, because I've been against A&M for the last week. I'm just saying in regards to this, I'd have A&M at 5 over Ohio State, or I'd have them at 4 over Ohio State, just as Ohio State. I mean, A&M's played twice as many games, and especially if Ohio State gets another game canceled, they just haven't looked good via the eye test this year. That's all I'm saying.
The one thing I'll say about this Ohio State team is what we talked about last week and weeks prior was they are a great football team offensively. Their defense has been inconsistent, especially in the secondary. So when you look at it, you have to hit and check every box to be considered a top 4 team. Ohio State, I think, offensively is a top 4 team, but when you look at the defense, that's where things change.
Well, Alabama's defense isn't great either. The last couple weeks it's played better, but they gave up 50 to Ole Miss? And Bama's number 1, and I think they should be deservingly so. Ohio State hasn't lost yet. That's what it comes down to, and we knew coming into the season that the Big Ten was going to have a shortened schedule. So they're basically saying, and I agree with them, they think Ohio State is better than the teams below them. even based off the 4 games. I know they kind of let that lead slip against Indiana, but Ohio State just as a team, and like you talked about as an offense, I'd still take that over A&M personally. And if they lose, they'll slip, but they're basically saying Ohio State, for the most part, outside of this one game that got canceled, will play the schedule they expected. If they win the Big Ten and they go undefeated, they'll be in.
Yeah. Oh, I will say, yeah. I mean, Ohio State, they do have a better chance going up against Bama, going against Notre Dame, going against Clemson than A&M does. I will say that. I think
hard language. It's a hard language.
When you get those tongue twisters, it happens. So I do think Ohio State, like I said, I was just saying at this point, considering they haven't played much, they have another game canceled. Some of their teams will have twice as many games. Again, none of this matters at this point. It's going to matter in a few weeks. But yeah, A&M, I'll say it again. Sorry, A&M fans, you should not be ranked 5th. You should not. No. Defensively, props to you guys, but watching this team on offense, it's a punishment I don't even wish upon our worst enemies.
They are ranked 26th in total defense, which is not bad. There are a lot
Texas,
of it sounds worse than it actually does. They're going up against a lot. Statistically, the number 1 defense in the country is Wisconsin, and they've played 2 games, and one of them was against Northwestern's offense. So take the defensive stats, with a grain of salt, but they're ranked 26th, which isn't bad considering they played 6 games and they give up 330 yards a game.
Well, that's the top 6, so no changes there. We go to the rest of our list, 7 through 25. No real huge shakeups right here, kind of the same for the most part as last week. I know there's a few things people are going to want to mention, especially considering we're going to have 18 spots to kind of go over. The one I'm gonna mention first and foremost once Brady throws it up. Not that it's relevant to anything in regards to the playoff, how it's going to impact the top 12 or so, but it is something that immediately they caught my attention. I sent this in the group chat and I wanted to get this up. So whenever Brady's able to get that graphic up.
The graphic just jumped down on me. So hang on.
Oh, well, that happens. So guys, yeah, there's one thing that stood out to me. A few other things that I briefly want to mention. I'm not sure how many things you guys have to touch up on from 7 through 25. I'm sure we'll probably talk about Cincinnati, BYU, those two in regards to the top 25. But overall, for the most part, I thought it was pretty fine. SC gets a game canceled and they say, SC, you got COVID. You're done. You're out. No more for you. So that was kind of sad. No, and unfortunately, this is the top 6 still. That's okay. Here, what is? Oh,
there we go.
Ooh,
there we go. All right, guys. First and foremost, the thing I just want to mention again, this has nothing to do with how the top 12 is going to happen. How does North Carolina lose to Notre Dame and move up 2 spots? Lyle, can you explain this to me? Did I watch was I watching a Notre Dame North Carolina game from a different year? Was there some odd universe where actually North Carolina won this game and that's why they moved up?
Not the last time I checked, and I was as shocked about this as you were. I mean, and they still lost by 2 scores. I mean, they played them tough for the most part of the game, but end of the story is you still lost by 2 scores. I don't know how they moved up 2 spots.
I think that I don't think it's egregious. I think it's surprising. And we'll talk about that Notre Dame, North Carolina game in a minute. So I'll kind of save my thoughts on the game for that discussion. I don't think it's egregious. It's one of the ones that I don't really understand. That 16-17 is kind of interesting because if we're being honest, I think this 6-3 North Carolina team at 17 makes a lot of sense. I think them being at 17 is a good spot. I don't think it makes sense for them to move up 2 spots after losing to Notre Dame and losing the way that they did because, again, I'll save a majority of my thoughts for this discussion we'll have about the game. I thought they were underwhelming in this game. I thought that the end of the game should have been differently. Notre Dame should have won, but North Carolina had their chances and they blew it and they didn't deserve to win.
Right.
So how do you move up 2 spots after that?
I think the one thing why they moved up and just looking at the rankings now, it's so tough. And this is why we do not have this job and are not in charge of this. And we should be. And that is because you look at the teams directly a couple spots above and a couple spots below, right? Iowa with a big jump at +5, Oklahoma State, big jump +8. But where does a team like North Carolina, who loses to a top 4 opponent, top 2 opponent, where do they fall? How do you fall? Do you, move Wisconsin for not playing? Do you consider, all right, Northwestern should drop below them? I'm just trying to figure out how the math would work and where they should have fallen if they were to fall.
Heck,
think
you could have just flipped. You could have just flipped SC in North Carolina. Like SC could have just moved up to 17, and North Carolina, who started at 19, they could have just moved down 1 spot.
Considering
Yeah,
SC was already at 18 to start the week, that makes sense. And that's
or they could have
something
gone.
that Lyle has talked about in the past, and we've all kind of agreed with, is how do you drop, especially how do you drop more than one spot if you don't play a game? Like, you're not really doing anything to not play. The problem with that now is we're in a world where tons of teams aren't playing games.
And so it's affecting everyone else's.
So it's
ranking.
affecting everybody else around them, which I guess makes a little bit of sense why North Carolina moved up. But again, like Lyle's logic makes a lot more sense. Why don't you just swap USC and North Carolina if that's the move that you're going to make? But then again, like, we're now getting to a point where last week we all said, is Northwestern really the number 8 team in the country? And then they lose a game. And then this week, personally, I think Northwestern at 14 makes a lot of sense. Like, I think that's a great spot for them now, and it's where they should be at this moment in time. But it's like that all over the board, where suddenly, like, Iowa State at 9 makes sense. Northwestern makes sense. USC at 20 is like, okay. Oregon falling all the way. Oregon falling all the way to 23, Washington jumping in. Like, all of these now make sense, but it's because of random moves like North Carolina losing and going up 2, and then a team not playing and falling down 2. So, like, it's just something we haven't seen before, and I don't know if a lot of it makes sense.
I think one thing that I really do like, and I said this last week on the show, is what started off as sort of a joke to start the year, and it was all fun and games, but having North Carolina be in the top 25 consistently and continue to move up, now up to 18, I love it. Like, I respect what the committee's doing for these smaller
Are you talking about
teams.
North Carolina or
I'm sorry, Coastal Carolina.
Yeah.
Coastal Carolina is having this Coastal Carolina team continue to move up because they're continuing to play well. We saw teams in years past, UCF, very, very different scenario than what Coastal Carolina has. But I really like what the committee's doing right now with Coastal Carolina and giving them the respect they deserve. I mean, game day's going there this week. I mean, how awesome is that?
So first thing we'll go to right now, we got to read this super chat from Mr. Berg Forever. NCAA needs full playoffs, a conference winner, maybe 2 bubble teams to make it a 12-team playoff. Glad you're doing well, Harris. Guys, that'd be a fun one, a 12-team playoff. Brady, Indiana would sneak in right now if that was
They'd be in
12-team playoff. They'd play number 1 Alabama this week.
I think number 1 and 2 would probably get by.
Nah, we have Indiana face Alabama. Before Lyle says whatever he was going to say, I'll just say this: Coastal Carolina, they deserve to be above North Carolina. They deserve to be above Wisconsin, and they definitely deserve to be above Northwestern. I'll say that as much. Northwestern just showed the committee, we definitely did not deserve to be at 8, considering they lost. They lost to Michigan State, and they fell only 6 spots. It doesn't really make much difference, but Northwestern.
If you have Coastal Carolina above all of them, are they warranted being a top 14 team?
I think so. I think they're
BYU's there too for whatever asinine.
We'll get to that. So, Lyle, I know I cut you off, so we'll get to BYU, Cincinnati, all that stuff after that. But I'll let you say what you were going to say.
Oh, I think the worst move on this entire top 25 is how Oklahoma's. Oh, you can't hear me?
No, you're good now.
Frozen for a second.
Can you guys not hear me?
No, we got you now.
Honestly, I think the worst move on here, I think, is that Oklahoma State moved up 8 spots for beating a 3-6 Texas A&M team by 6 points.
No, not Texas A&M.
Or sorry, Texas Tech.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the movements in this are absolutely ridiculous.
8 spots. Those guys are 3-6.
Didn't they fall 8 spots last week?
Did they?
Were they not like 12 or something like that when they lost?
Oklahoma State. They were I think like number 10, 11, 12. Then they lost to Oklahoma. Then they fell like 3 or 4 or 5 spots, and then they because they must have fallen. Yeah, they must have fallen. Like
they lost to Oklahoma and fell like.
Well, I think it's because the playoff rankings came out. Let me see, like last week, real quick, while Brady's working on something. Oklahoma State, they were 23rd in the initial playoff poll, and then in week 12, when they lost to Oklahoma, they were 14th in the country. So it's not technically like the same thing because they're different rankings, but they did go from 14 to 23 in the poll. Now they're back up. So make your mind on Oklahoma State. So I like what you brought up there. But all right, guys, let's go to Cincinnati, BYU. So the committee heard us. The committee heard America. They heard Kirk Herbstreit. They heard everyone complaining that BYU was disrespected at 14. So they said, you know what? We got you, America. We're going to move BYU up. All the way up to number 13 in the country. Granted, they didn't play. They didn't have a game that weekend, so really tough to gauge about anything they did. But again, having them at 13, they're screwed at this point. Cincinnati, they didn't play either. They're there at 7, so nothing really to mention there. But again, we've talked about this in the past, is just the disrespect in regards to these non-Power 5 teams. I mean, the thing, I said this in my BYU video when I did it a few weeks ago. If going 9-0 was so easy, more teams would do it. And it's that simple. I get they haven't been playing a bunch of competitive teams. It's same with Cincinnati. I guess Cincinnati's schedule's been a little bit tougher than BYU's. But again, if it was this easy, more teams would be doing it. So I'm glad that BYU at least got it to move up one spot. I was just waiting for them to come in like at 16 or 17, have Kirk Herbstreit have a heart attack on live television. But overall, for the most part, Georgia being at 8, we talked about that last week. That's an absolute joke. Iowa State, they pulled out the last second victory on the road at Texas, and they hop up 4 spots all of a sudden like that. Yeah, I mean, again, you know my thoughts. BYU should be higher. I'm high on Cincinnati, and everything in between. It just is what it is.
Yeah, I'm high on Cincinnati too. I think BYU should be higher, but I don't know. Like, we talk about the eye test, and we talk about strength of schedule, and we talk about like what these teams do statistically against compared to other teams in the country. Cincinnati and BYU, forget about the fact that they've played 9 games or 8 games or whatever. Their stats are better than a lot of these other big teams in the country, regardless of who they're playing. But also, their stats are better across a much longer slate of games than a lot of these other teams too. They've done it every single week. Every time they've stepped on the field, you've gotten an impressive result every single game. So I think that's what's impressive about these teams and why they deserve a little bit more respect. But yeah, I guess the strength of schedule is something that's not going to bode super well for BYU, which again, we talked a little bit about this last week. I would have been jumping on that opportunity to play Washington if I was BYU. And I know that there were logistical things that came into play there that didn't, make it work out. I would have done anything possible to play that game. And
well, even then, I still don't think it was their choice. I still think it came down to Washington deciding they wanted to go with Utah.
So Washington wanted to reschedule and play like Utah or Colorado, whoever they ended up playing last week. They wanted to have that option, like, oh well, if that doesn't work, then we'll play you. But then I think BYU didn't want to agree to that. They were either like, no, you agree to play us now or don't at all.
Yeah, but I'm still thinking that was the plan. I still think that it was ultimately still Washington's decision and that BYU didn't necessarily pull out, because I think for the most part, Washington, they were going to play Utah regardless. I mean, if that Utah game wouldn't have happened, then they would have called BYU and said, hey, let's get this going. But the second, Utah, I think it was the ASU one, that got canceled. They were saying, okay, Utah, let's get this going. So we talked about this last week. Yeah, BYU, they should have just said, it doesn't matter to us. We'll be ready to go. But in the end, it still wasn't even their call. Washington was the one that said, we're going to be playing Utah instead. So I get both sides, but still, I don't think BYU should be getting this shafted when, again, it wasn't ultimately their decision on the game. If Washington wanted to play BYU instead, they would have played BYU instead of Utah.
But Cincinnati
didn't Washington's scared
either. Cincinnati didn't play this past week either, which is why I would have reached out and said, we got to do something. If one of us wants a chance, why not play each other? Obviously, It's easier said than done, but considering that is not the most absurd thing in this 2020 of college football, where teams are switching opponents literally the day before games and stuff. Like ASU Utah got canceled, USC got canceled fairly late, and then switched opponents the same day. And same thing with ASU Utah, they switched real quick. So the fact that we have all these teams switching opponents, I do not think it is the most absurd thing ever for two teams to have a bye week and be like, look, why don't we play each other?
Right. So there we go. So guys, those are pretty much the playoff rankings, our thoughts on that. Again, if there's anything you'd like us to discuss in regards to the playoff rankings, games, players, matchups, anything like that, you guys can hit us up in the super chat, donate $1, donate $2, anything like that. Help support the show. We'll get your comment on the screen. We'll talk about what exactly it is you want to be talked about. Well, Brady gets up this graphic that I just texted him. If you follow us on Twitter at the HH Show _, which, by the way, if you haven't already, make sure you do that because it's an absolute must follow. But I found this on Instagram today, and I decided I would tweet this out because it was very interesting to me. And I remember there's been a few instances where teams get into the playoff. I mean, Oklahoma, for example, and they just get absolutely drowned. I mean, they look awful. Aside from that one Rose Bowl game against Georgia, and they look awful. Looking at this graphic, I didn't realize and remember as much just how bad every year in the playoffs someone just gets absolutely blown away. It's almost like most of the matchups. We were talking about this in the group chat. Aside from the Hunter Renfrow walk-off touchdown in the Natty against Bama a few years back, last year's Clemson-Ohio State game, and the Georgia-Oklahoma Rose Bowl, unless there's one going back to 2014 that we're missing, all of these games have been absolute blowouts. Brady, do you have the graphic ready to throw up? Are you still working?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'll get it formatted up. By the way, just because I'm looking at it right now, this tweet that we put out has 1,400 likes and 147 retweets. So good job to whichever one of us tweeted it out. Who did it? Who did it?
Well, I took credit early this morning. I literally said when I was talking about it a minute ago, I found this on Instagram, so I decided to get that up. Actually, guys, we'll just answer this one real quickly before Brady gets the graphic up. Our man Steven again. After Iowa State beat Texas, where do you see the direction of Texas, and who do you think would be a good fit with Texas with the culture they have? Josh, does this relate to what you wanted to ask us?
Yeah, I say hold off on this.
Show?
Hold off on this for a second or two, and then bring it back up, because what I wanted to talk about with you guys is.
All right.
I'm guessing similar to what was brought up. There we go. Here we go.
All right. So, Steven, thanks for the donation. We'll get to your comment later in the show in regards to Josh's. All right, guys. So, looking at these scores here, I mean, I guess maybe Bama, Washington, that's not too bad. It's only a 17-point game. These are blowouts. These are blowouts on a consistent basis in every playoff. So, sorry, Lyle, that Clemson one is right in the middle there, 30-3 via Notre Dame. Let me take this graphic off so that way it's not on Lyle anymore, but let me just have this and read it right here. Guys, with most playoff games having been blowouts, do you think this actually helps or hurts a group of five's chances of making it? So what I mean by that is, again, we all think Cincinnati deserves a chance. I would love to see Cincinnati get a shot against Bama or against whoever the number one ranked team in the country is. But a lot of people are saying, you look at this and you say, oh, every team that gets in there, they get blown out, so Cincinnati would get blown out too. But shouldn't that actually be a benefit towards Cincinnati? Well, if everyone's getting blown out, shouldn't we get a chance? And again, I've been saying this for weeks. Cincinnati's defense, I think, will help keep them in a game if they go up against one of these teams. But again, looking at all these scores over the years, should this anyway help or hurt? Again, a team like BYU, a team like Cincinnati that's trying to make a push at the playoff.
So we tweeted this today, like you said, this exact graphic, and it kind of blew up. And obviously I knew we were going to talk about this, and I'm not the type of guy that just scrolls through comments on Twitter, regardless of whether we post it. Like if we post something and get 5 responses, I'm going to look at them. But like, I'm not going to read through the comments of a tweet that absolutely blows up. I did with this one because I knew we were going to talk about it, and I wanted to see what people were saying. And some people said this is more of a reason to include a team like Cincinnati or BYU, because it shows that if other teams are getting blown out, why shouldn't we give them a shot? Which I agree with. I'll just say that. But there are also people that jump in and say, why this just proves why we should be excluding a team like Cincinnati. If these teams are getting blown out, then who's to say Cincinnati won't get blown out worse? Here's the issue. There's no way of knowing. The whole UCF thing that we talked about a couple years ago and them claiming national champions, good for them. What they did was impressive. I was a very outspoken exclude UCF from the playoff. They don't deserve to be in. Look at their strength of schedule. Like, it's just not close. And that was a year where we had 4 teams that all deserved to get in. Mm-hmm. And this is a year, the first time ever, that we literally could have 1,000 teams make the playoffs this year, but we don't know because there are so many teams that are mediocre, I think.
I think you mean figuratively. I don't think there are 1,000 teams, Josh.
No. There's
there are.
Hang on. One.
Well, Slippery Rock is in there too, and then all the teams between Bama and Slippery Rock is like 1,000 at least. So Slippery Rock should be in there too. This is
shout out Slippery Rock.
We could do a full show on restructuring the college football playoff, and we've done similar things before. This graphic right here, I think, just proves that we'll never know if Cincinnati or a team like Cincinnati should be in because of this or should be excluded because of this, because they'd get beat worse. It's simply like expand the playoffs. A lot of people, we saw somebody say 12 earlier. We've seen people say 8. We've seen people do a 64 March Madness style thing. I think it makes sense to do 6 and do what Lyle has said. Power 5 conference champions and an at-large. And if you're going to go to 8, do a group of 5 and then another or 2 at-larges or something like that. It doesn't need to be egregious. And whatever it is, I hope it's 6 or 8. And I hope that you do these playoff games before the national championship, before your big time bowl games, because bowl games are a big part of college football. They're huge money makers. And it would be very wrong to just suddenly brand the Cotton Bowl and the Rose Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl and the Sugar Bowl as completely irrelevant just because you have teams that want to strive for a national championship, because I think that's what makes college football unique. We can argue about that all day. That's not the point of this, but like this just proves that there needs to be some sort of alteration to the playoff system, because in this current format, we will never know, because we will never get a Cincinnati or a BYU or a UCF.
What year was the Bama Clemson one top right? Is that 17?
Yeah, I think it was 17.
I think
that was the year after the Renfro lockoff, right?
So the 2017 season.
Oh, so then 2018. I always get confused on that when it's
whatever it was. But look at that. That's the only game on this whole list that was an upset. That was a lower seed winning. It happens. I mean, we see the 3 seed beat the 2 seed pretty regularly in the college football playoff. I say regularly, like we've had, 40, 50 playoffs. But there are upsets. Upsets do happen. So, especially in college athletics. So, seeing a team like a Cincinnati, like a whoever you want to say should be in there, I would love to see it. And I think it's a great thing that needs to happen. Obviously, I think with this year, why not this year if you're going to experiment and mess around a bit? But then there are other teams who are like, hey, we went 8-0. Why shouldn't we get in if you're Bama, if you're whoever it may be?
Now, here's what you do. You expand it to 8, and then you have all the lower seeds. You give them a 7-point lead to start the game.
Yes.
All of a sudden, the game just starts, and they're up 7-0.
So they're buying points, Blake, is what they're doing.
Yep, they're buying points. Teaser. So each team, again, the 8 seed, 7 seed, 6 seed, 5th seed, they start off up 7. And the other teams are that good, they'll come back and beat them. But that makes it interesting, and it gives them more of a shot. They start up 7-0.
Also, going off what Brady just said, how there's the lower seed getting a win. So actually, the first year of the college football playoff, Ohio State was the 4 seed and won. Mm-hmm. And one score that's not on here is that national championship game, which was 42-20, Ohio State over Oregon. Mm-hmm. That was right after the Oregon-Florida State game. So that's just another game that's not on there too. But I just thought that I would throw that out there.
I think the reason people want to see a group of 5 team in the playoff this year specifically is because, well, first and foremost, people love chaos. People want to see something different. But correct me if I'm wrong, guys. To me, it feels like this year, more than most years in the past, it's all very, very close, 1 through 4. Like, Bama's the best team, don't get me wrong. But the gap between Bama and Ohio State and Bama and Clemson and Bama and Notre Dame, intertwine it any way you want, it feels like it's all pretty close this year. Like, does it feel like anybody could beat anybody this year more than, say, LSU being number 1 last year?
Yes.
Yeah,
it does, right?
100%.
I think you're right, and I think another thing that factors into this is the fact that I don't know if outside of those 4, and maybe Florida, maybe A&M, whatever, outside of those 4, 5, or 6, I don't think there is another team that is really, really that good that is going to make a playoff push. Like, I think with these first 4, you have 4 teams that are all really close, and there's not a lot to separate. But then again, if you look at like maybe 8 through 15, 8 through 16, is there really a team that jumps off the page as being significantly better than all of those other teams? Because we're just in a stage of college football where when you're playing in these conference games, especially in a conference like the Pac-12, for example, haven't played a lot of games, anybody can beat anybody in the Pac-12. And more times this year than in any other year, we're seeing it in the Big 10, and we're seeing it in the Big 12, and we're seeing it in the ACC. Like, it's happening everywhere because teams aren't getting these non-conference games, because you're playing a shorter season and you had a shorter like summer workout period. Like, these teams just weren't necessarily at full strength entering the season. So I think you have a lot of factors why teams aren't at or playing at their top capacity and at the highest of their abilities and stuff. So I think that's why you don't have these separations pretty much anywhere across the board.
Yeah, right. And just to kind of wrap up my thoughts before we move on from this, the reason I wanted to kind of ask you guys that question is I wanted to preface it with, I guess I'm more on the side of, I feel like it might hurt some of these group of 5 teams. Just for example, you look at that graphic, it's pretty clear there's been gaps between, even though you rank the top 4 teams and put 4 teams into the playoff, a lot of years there's a significant gap between the number 1 team and the rest, or the number 1 and 2 team and the rest. For example, Memphis was the best group of 5 team last year. Like, you put Memphis against that LSU team, I don't know. I think that gets out of hand pretty quick. Or you put a group of 5 team 2 years ago against either that Bama team or Clemson team that matched off in the national championship. It just feels like it could go downhill fast. I think the reason people want to see it this year is because they feel like a team like Cincinnati might have a chance because it's all pretty close this year.
I'll say one thing very quickly, Blake. I'll be very quick with it. Is in years past, momentum is such an important key moving into the playoffs. You know, LSU has a big later season win against Alabama, and then they go and they win the SEC championship. They just have big momentum week after week after week. Well, now a team will get momentum and then they'll get a game canceled. And so there's so much up and down with some of these higher ranked teams where I think you have the team like a Cincinnati that could make a shot and make a chance at a playoff run if, you know, it were expanded this year and if the committee were to put them in.
Yeah, again, the only reason why is Cincinnati, and I think everyone can agree it's their defense. Their defense can keep them in it. Their offense can hang points. We'll see. I mean, it'd be
and
great.
Luke Fickell's such a great coach, too.
There you go. Guys, before we move on to our next topic, it's just a real quick one. Joshua wants to know, Florida beats Bama. Your thoughts? I think it can happen. They can hang points on Bama. Bama's defense isn't as good. Granted, they're going to have a lot go their way to take down Bama, but I think Florida can get it done.
I'll tell you this. I'm not a betting man, but take the over in that game. There's going to be so many points scored.
Alabama hasn't been great defensively to tight ends in years past. Granted, Kyle Pitts isn't really a tight end. So however you want to classify Kyle Pitts, it's going to be how they decide to cover Kyle Pitts. Do they take their number 1 corner and put him on your tight end, which opens up everything else for the rest of your wide receiver core, which is really good with Tony in there as well. So it all depends on how Bama is able to line up defensively against a potent Florida offense. Football mind.
There you go.
Depth right there.
Look at that.
Guys, I mentioned this earlier in the show, but I figured since, we have to get to other things, and this actually might be a better topic to discuss next week, we're going to save the Ohio State conversation for next week because, again, if their game this weekend does get canceled, then it's a perfect thing for next week. Or if it doesn't, we can talk about whether or not Michigan, again, goes full savage mode, and they do that. So we're going to save that.
Quickly, before we get on the Ohio State thing, news for this week is that Ryan Day is already announced that he's not coaching this week for still in COVID quarantine. So that's a big story for this week with Ohio State. Not the one we were going to talk about.
How is Ohio State going to beat Michigan State now?
I don't know. Hey, Bama. I love seeing Sark back on the sidelines, by the way. That was fun.
No.
Yes.
No. All right, guys. So it's going to move now to our stars of the week. While Brady gets that graphic up, I don't know if he included them, or I was going to say he didn't include in the initial graphic, but we have a collective star of the week that's going to go to Sarah Fuller, who became the first female at the Power 5 level. It's happened multiple times in college football before, which I didn't know. I don't remember hearing. It was like at the very lower level. Becomes the first female position. I mean, I was going to say player, but I mean pretty much kicker. I mean, it seems tough to see her lining up like a linebacker or something. But she's becomes the kicker
too, man. She could line up at linebacker.
That is true. She's good size. Kicker. Unfortunately, she does play for Vanderbilt, so they weren't in scoring position at any point of the game. She's going to be playing this week again against Georgia, and I don't think Vanderbilt is
not going to cross the 50.
They're not going to cross the 50, so we might not see her, aside from her one, coming back either to kick off the game or coming back from halftime, her kickoff attempt, but props to her. She didn't make it into this graphic. She's our collective star of the week. So now let's go to our individual stars of the week. Again, whoever you guys' best player, coach, team, anything of the week was, drop a comment down below in the live chat. Let us know who your guys' star of the week was. Lyle's microphone is not my star of the week.
Oh.
Nope. No.
Oh.
Maybe it's Josh's. I don't know.
Well, Lyle just muted himself, and then it disappeared, so.
All right. Let's go to my star of the week. Oh, wait, no, this is Josh's star of the week. He's going to cut it off. Yeah. I guess claiming someone first doesn't get you the honor of having them as your star of the week.
Like your star of the week was the best player.
What was your favorite play from that game, Blake?
My favorite play of the game was when the the backup quarterback snuck in at the very end to give him the lead. That was my favorite play of the game.
Why isn't the backup quarterback your star?
Well, because he was in for one play.
Oh well, his scoring efficiency is 100% in his college career.
I just want to say this because I was helping MJ's mom move on Friday, so I literally missed most of the Oregon State game. I got back and there was like 5 minutes or so left, so I caught it. And all game, Josh was just like in the group chat, man, Jermar Jefferson, this guy's a stud. He's so good. He's having such a great game. The second I looked at his stat sheet, I'm like, okay, he's my star of the week. And Josh is like, whoa. I've been saying this all game, but I said, Josh, listen, how it works is how the rules are. You got to claim him in the group chat. And then Josh came and said, but you haven't watched all the game like I have. And I said, since when is the star of the week meant we have to watch the entire game? It's never meant that.
I can tell you, I didn't watch a single snap of my Stars game. I can tell you that.
All I can tell you is that I texted the group chat and said, after Blake did it, I said, Brady, I want Jermar Jefferson. And Brady said, okay. So
being the gracious host I am, being such an amazing friend, I said, Josh, you know what? Take Jermar Jefferson because I knew that the following day that multiple NCAA records would be shattered, and I go with a different running back as my star of the week. So, Josh, joke's on you. Your running back had a worse performance than me. So, who's
I
the
told you to
loser
take
now?
JP.
Who's
All
the
right,
loser now?
Let me just say real quick. Let me show you guys how smart I was in college. I roomed with the guy who makes all of our graphics and is super like technical about stuff and does like Photoshop and takes cool photos. Number one, I knocked it out of the park with that. Number two, the day after we moved into our dorm freshman year, Brady and I made friends with the dude who ran all of the food in the dining hall, and he hooked us up every single day. Rule number one, make friends with the guy who takes pictures and can help you with all of your Photoshop and stuff. And rule two, which is probably rule number one, if we're being honest,
make friends with the guy who makes your food is what Josh was going to say.
Be friends with the food people.
Richard, we miss you. Richard, we love you, and I love your omelet.
And Miguel.
Yeah.
Miguel.
Get a girlfriend that literally will cook all your food for you if you don't cook like me. While I'd say I'll give you this advice, find yourself a girl that can cook for you, but you're not looking for that in your life right now. But
it's also not hard to cook for Lyle. It takes 2 pieces of bread, some peanut butter, and jelly.
That's also true. So without further ado.
All right, here are stars.
All right. So basically, Josh is saying make friends not to be friends, but use them. That's a comment from Short Round. And what I'm saying, Short Round, is exactly that.
All right.
So my star of the week is Jermar Jefferson, the running back from Oregon State. This is a dude who was a 3-star recruit at a Narbonne high school in LA. They're a city section powerhouse down here. In my time in high school, they beat us by a lot, like multiple times in the playoffs. He was only the number 78 recruit out of California, was a 3-star according to 247, and got 5 offers, 2 from Power 5 schools. They were Colorado and Oregon State. He wanted to go to SC, and SC did not offer him, did not pay any attention to him, and he has still arguably been the best running back in the Pac-12 the last couple years, over Eno Benjamin, over CJ Verdell, and this game was, I think, a culmination of these last few years for him, and he goes in style, 226 and 2 touchdowns, and beats arch rival Oregon and effectively eliminates the Pac-12 from any type of playoff contention. So thanks, Jermar Jefferson. Oregon State does not care about the Pac-12 playoffs hopes. And Jermar Jefferson, also known by some people at ASU as Jafar. Apparently. Jafar Jefferson. Yep.
That's a great story.
Pads the stat.
Okay. After all these weeks of putting up offensive players, and I felt like I was doing it every week, I think to myself, it's probably time to get a defensive player up on this star of the week. So this was a pretty easy guy to pick. Derek Stingley, shutdown corner from LSU. A guy who really haven't talked about much this year, considering that opening game against Mississippi State he was out for. And then when since then, I mean, LSU hasn't been that relevant, so he hasn't been talked about much. But don't forget about this superstar just because LSU's not having a great year. This past week, he was targeted 6 times, playing 36 coverage snaps. He allowed 1 catch for 5 yards. This is a guy that's going to go top 5 come 2022. He's a lockdown corner, and he just balls every single week, plain and simple.
I love it. He's such a good player. As a freshman, he was one of the best in the country. Just wait till he, gets another year or 2 of progression under him. Scary. My star this week, I went with someone off the beaten path. I was texting my good pal Sam Wiederhaft earlier, who works at Coastal Carolina. I was like, all right, what are some guys you got on your team? He's like, check out CJ Marable. His name's CJ. His real name's Terrence. I put Terrence on here because I wanted to give him his real name.
Actually,
even though
Torrance.
It's Torrance. You're right. I'm looking at my small. So I have like the graphic, which is even smaller on my screen, but I have it big over here. Anyway, Torrance Marable, CJ Marable. I mean, 16 attempts, 157 yards, 3 touchdowns, a win, a ranked top 20, and they're getting game day to come to their city. See what I did there? That's their whole play on words, what they do at game day. For the Shants. So I'm giving mine to a Chanticleer of CJ Marable.
That's going to be a fun one this week. Coastal Carolina versus Liberty. It's going to be great for game day. This is one of those ones where you're just really bummed that they're not going to be fans there, because that would be one of the more lit game day experiences over the last few years. This one was easy. I'm very grateful that I was given the easiest one instead of having Jermar Jefferson, who ran for 226 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Cute.
That's cute. My star of the week rushed for a nice, cool 409 yards with 8 touchdowns. The best part of this one is, guys, I think literally I texted the group chat after the first play of the Buffalo game saying, oh, hey, Jared Patterson has 60 yards and 1 touchdown, 80 seconds into this game. Little did we know we were about to witness, history. At the end of the first quarter, I think he was like at 200-something yards. The best part about this, so the 8 touchdowns tied an NCAA record. 409 yards were the second most. I think Samaje Perine had 427, I want to say, so he was 18 yards away from setting that. The fact that Kevin Marks, the other running back at Buffalo, had 16 carries, had over 100 rushing yards. Jared Patterson could have and probably should have set both of these records, because Kevin Marks also had a rushing touchdown, and especially on the final drive, the worst part is that Kevin Marks had like 30 yards on the final drive, scored a touchdown, so Jared Patterson could have set both NCAA records on that final drive, but the coach decided, you know what? No, let's not have him set literally 2 NCAA records that might not ever be broken and have them be by the same player, but still a fantastic outing from Jared Patterson. For those of you longtime viewers of the show, you guys would know that we've had Jared Patterson on the show back in February, I think. I reached out to him asking if he'd be on the show, and he said he'd love to be on the show this week, but he's busy on Tuesday night. Turns out that right now he was on, the CBS Sports show, so unfortunately, I guess that does get the slight edge over the Harris Highlight Show. He did say he's going to try and set some time later in the week to join the show. So stay tuned for us on Twitter if we're able to get Jared Patterson on the show later this week, maybe next week, but he'll be back soon. It's just a matter of if and when. So follow us on Twitter so you can get all the full details. But those are our stars of the week, guys.
Along with our collective star of Sarah Fuller, who,
hey guys,
by the way, for those saying her kick almost went out of bounds, that was a designed kick. It didn't go out of bounds. It got 0 return yards. She didn't give up a touchdown. She gave up 0 return yards. So major props to Sarah Fuller, who had an assist in the, I think, SEC semifinals in soccer. So she can kick the ball, don't you worry. And I guarantee you, I'm not going to guarantee it because I don't want to put a post-it note, but I'm going to say she's going to kick. I think she's going to get a touchback this next week. I give her a touchback.
Yeah?
I'm going to give her a touchback.
We'll see. Well, she's only going to get one chance against Georgia.
Hey, all you need is to be in the 25-yard line. That's a touchback now. Fair
all right, guys, it's time.
Wait, Blake, real quick. I want to point out. So Jared Patterson, the 8 rushing touchdowns is an NCAA rushing record. So he did set that. He ties the total touchdowns in a game record of 8. And when we were at ASU a couple years ago, Kalen Ballage tied the NCAA record with 8 total touchdowns. He had 7 rushing that tied a record that Jared Patterson broke this past week, and then had a receiving touchdown to tie the NCAA total TDs record for a game. And I texted our group chat and said, if Patterson breaks this, remember that this is almost the second time we've seen somebody break the record, because ASU had the ball inside the 5-yard line in the final minute, took Ballage out of the game and let somebody else rush it in for a touchdown. And as I sent that text message, Blake goes, and they just took Patterson out of the game. And then the next running back scored a touchdown. So he literally could have broken the record again. And
could have broken, like I said, both records.
He could have set
if he scored the touchdown that their backup running back did, he would have broken both records, because all he needed was 18 yards, and it was like a 24-yard touchdown is what the backup scored.
Yeah.
The crazy part is that Jared Patterson, again, just going back to him, the numbers he's put up at Buffalo the last 3 years are insane. But the fact that, again, Kevin Marks, who's a really good running back, is still getting like 40% of the carries. So Jared Patterson, over his last, I think, like 10 games, I tweeted this out, has like 30-something touchdowns, a couple thousand rushing yards. This is while getting like 60% of the carries. So he's fantastic. Guys, it's time to get into unis, our favorite uniforms of the week. Uni Watch, everyone's favorite thing right there. I can't find the graphic, or there's the ticker right here. So Brady goes to our uniforms. Josh, we'll kick it off with you for your favorite uniform from this past weekend.
All right, guys. I mean, I'm kind of underwhelmed by the uniforms this week. We talked about it in our group chat. I think there were more ugly uniforms than really sick uniforms this week. But I decided to go with Oklahoma State anyway. If you guys remember earlier this year, I picked their all blacks, which I think are legit a top 5 uniform combination in college football with these Oklahoma State unis. And these ones, they mix it up a little bit. Orange helmets with the white highlights, which I don't think they've had before. Whatever it is, it's a very clean combo. Not as cool as the all black ones, but like it's just a nice look. Nothing super special, fresh, mixed it up a little bit, and I think it worked out well.
Okay, so this week on our weekly poll, as we talk about every week, we put up a poll for you guys to vote for your favorite uniform of the week for Uni Watch. And this week, if you look at our Twitter at the HHShow_, nominees were, along with Oklahoma State, Missouri, Memphis, or as always, other. A couple of the other comments, somebody did put South Florida, which I thought was funny. We got a Clemson purple. That's always a good one. Michigan State. Just playing, he says. So not a fan of those Michigan State jerseys, which they wore against ASU last year. But the winner, 43.8% of the votes, the Memphis white and blue jerseys from this past week. The visor is what's getting me, at least when I looked at these. But the white with the blue kind of playing off with that. I don't know. These were really clean.
I thought Michigan State was going to wear those jerseys, but ended up not last year against ASU.
Yeah, they ended up not wearing them.
Oh, I thought they did. I thought.
No, they ended up not.
They were supposed to, and then they even printed all of our credentials with that neon
with the color.
With that color, but they switched them, I think, because the game was like prime time on ESPN, so they decided to like wear their normal uniforms, I guess.
I guess I forgot that part.
Yeah, here I got the photos pulled up from it right here. Yeah, they wore.
It's all good. We believe it, Brady. You can get to your uniform.
Anyways, my uniform this week, I rocked with the Indiana Hoosiers. I had to. I didn't do a Hoosier in my star of the week this week. First time I've done it since, they kept winning. Michael Penix Jr. out for the season, torn ACL, so I couldn't put him as a star. It's Jack Tuttle time in Indiana, I guess. So I'm going to go with the IU all camo. They had sort of the gold stars on the side, and I'm glad they didn't do camo numbers too, because having the red popped as a broadcaster. I think we could pretty much all agree. Thankfully, they didn't do like a white number. They kept it red so the broadcasters could see it. So I'm giving.
I didn't see these uniforms this weekend.
Really? Why not, Blake?
All right.
You just saw a bunch of floating. You just saw a bunch of floating helmets, huh?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Now, my next uniform, I didn't think this is one of the better ones. In fact, I thought this was one of the worst ones from this past weekend. But in case you missed it for whatever reason, I thought it'd be great to show all of you these highlighter South Florida uniforms with a interesting helmet as well, where it's like a different kind of green, but it's like shiny, and they just look like a highlighter. I don't have the highlighter.
The yellow on the helmet is different than the yellow on the jersey.
Yeah,
or green, or whatever you want to call it.
Green, yellow. Whatever.
I thought this was a good idea.
Well, these are I think we've talked about this before. Lyle, they look a lot like those Seahawks ones that they wear sometimes. Are you a fan of those when they wear those color rush ones?
Yeah, I am, because I don't think they look that much like these South Florida ones. I think it's like at least like a better green than those. That's like more yellow.
Yeah, it's like a highlighter. I think
they called them slime, actually.
We should also point out that the color scheme is green on green, which is like horrible.
With yellow.
Yeah, who thought this was a good idea?
Yeah, it wasn't good. So those are our uniforms of the week. Our man Connor, the Army Navy uniforms are a lock for Uni Watch. Yeah, we tweeted those out earlier today on our show, and Connor actually sent this to our Twitter group message saying these are locks. These are honorary. They're going to be honorary unis for next week, guys, or 2 weeks. It's the next week. I can't remember.
Next week or weekend? 2 weeks. I don't know.
All right. Well, whenever they are, they're going to be automatic locks. Hey, John Morant's in here. He's saying that the uniforms are trash as well. All right, guys. Time now to move over
It's actually John Morant dropped some money in the super chat.
Oh, great, John Morant. Hey, let us meet your giraffe, John Morant. All right, guys, moving on to Blake's bets now. 2 for 2 last weekend. I think I had the Ohio State game get canceled. So we move to 30-19 on this season. So still a very successful season. That's more than 70%, which is a fantastic number. These are 5 of my bets this weekend. These are the ones that I like. These are the ones I'm going to make sure I get action on this upcoming weekend. Ohio State -24 against Michigan State. Ohio State, they're hungry to prove to us specifically that they're worthy of being the top 4 team in the country. Alabama -29 against LSU. Oh, how the tables have turned in regards to that rivalry, but I like Alabama in that one. Florida -17 against Tennessee. They're going to blow them out. ASU, they're favored by 4 against UCLA. People have forgotten that ASU is still a football team because we haven't played in a month, but I like the Sun Devils, especially by only 4. And if you like points, make sure you watch the SMU Houston game. That game is, I believe, at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. The over, last time I checked, is 67. I said this in the chat last week as the oven's going off. The Buffalo-Kent State game was going to score over 100 points. I think this game can easily get to over 100 points as well. So those are Blake's bets of the week. Before we get to our Q&A and our pick'ems, Josh has a Texas topic that he has saved for us. None of us know what he's about to ask us, bring up, what the topic is. This is all new for us. So, Josh, we're looking forward to this Texas topic that you have. Let's hear it.
Sorry, I was muted. So this kind of goes along with what was brought up in the comments, after the loss to Iowa State. Like, what direction is Texas going? What's their possible next move? And kind of along those lines, I saw a discussion on Twitter that really sparked a debate, and it was somebody saying, with the way that Texas recruits and the way that the Big 12 has always been, and with Texas's history, Texas should not be losing to Iowa State as regularly as they do. And it's a very kind of self-centered and cocky attitude, but Texas fans believe that they should be beating a team like Iowa State every year. And somebody said, well, that's just arrogance and you shouldn't think that way, and that's not how this is supposed to go. And I kind of want to gauge Come on, man. I just kind of want to gauge what you guys think about this topic before I kind of give my thoughts on a team like Texas. Is it arrogant for Texas fans to think that realistically they should be beating a team like Iowa State every year, or teams like Iowa State every year?
I'll just kick things off. I mean, I guess if you're a fan of realistically, you should expect them, especially when you're a team like Texas, to beat everyone in the Big 12 you're playing. Iowa State's they're a top 10 team for crying out loud, so I don't think there should be this expectation. But I think, at the end of the game, Sam Ehlinger, I didn't see the full press conference, I heard about this, where they asked him, they said, like, what's the deal with Texas? Like, how come you guys can't figure this out? And he said, that's the $1 million question. We don't know. So I don't think it's like arrogant to expect it. I'd expect them to win the rest of their games, no problem. And when you play the top 10, 15 teams, have those be highly competitive games, which this game was. But I mean, Texas, they're not at the state now where they are still. They're still not yet a top 15, not a top 20, maybe borderline top 25 team. So I don't think, again, when you're playing top 10, 15 teams, they should be expecting to win. Unless, again, my mindset is I expect to win every game, but I don't think necessarily a team like Iowa State, you should have full-blown, the old Texas, yes, the old Texas from, back in our elementary school days, 100%. If you're losing any of these games, that's a loss. But, realistically, Texas is just a good team, and that's just a simple way to put it.
Historically, Texas is a good team.
Yes.
Realistically.
It's historically one of the 6 or 7 best teams.
Best of all time.
Yes.
I think some of the old head fans, some of the older fans around the Texas program, and even some of the more, middle-aged fans, you could say as well, that were actively following the Texas in the late 90s, early thousands, are still expecting this Texas team to be what it is. And straight up, simply enough, they are not. things change. I said this a few weeks ago is, teams have off years, a single off year, a few off years. You look at Penn State this year. Penn State, I would say, is in that top 8, 10 upper echelon of blue blood teams. They are having an off year. Alabama last 3 games last year, and that was considered an off year for them. Every team goes through ebbs and flows. Some are longer, some are shorter. I think eventually Texas will get back to what they are. It might not be this year. It might not be next year. It might not be the year after that. I think Texas internally and externally, the face of Texas, the coach and the players, think they're going to beat everybody every single week. Like Blake said, you expect to beat every team every week, and you're going to say that to the media. You're going to say that to whoever it may be. But inside, you're thinking, man, we have no chance. Why are we going to lose to a team like Iowa State? Well, like I said, there are ebbs and flows in the seasons and in years. Iowa State's on an upward slope. They're a better team. They're getting better every year. Just so happens at the same time, Texas is getting worse or not progressing enough to keep up with the trend of upward trending teams. I think it's simple as that. Is there are ebbs and flows. It's a roller coaster. It's an up and down, whatever, cliche you want to use. It is what it is.
I think it's just, if I heard the question right, it sounds like these fans have the expectations for their team in Texas that they should compete for a national championship every year. And obviously the last few years, it really hasn't been that way. I know they beat Georgia in a New Year's Six bowl. It's still not the playoff. It's still not the national championship. At least that's how I'm hearing this. Look, you're not going to beat every team every year. That just doesn't happen to anybody. Not even Alabama, not even Ohio State, nobody. But I kind of understand where they're coming from in the sense of it feels like the last few years as a whole have been a little bit underwhelming, and they kind of want to get back to a state of being a national powerhouse every year. They're not there right now. So I get it.
Yeah. So the way that I kind of look at this is as an LA guy who grew up watching USC football and then going to Arizona State, I've seen both sides of it, just as Blake had with ASU and USC, as Lyle had with Notre Dame and ASU, and Brady, let's say IU and ASU basketball. We'll go in that direction for you.
I like it. It's a great comparison.
Yeah, I feel like that's fair.
Yeah.
And I've heard somebody say this, and at first I thought that's kind of an absurd claim, but the more I look at it, the more I think that this makes sense, and it kind of relates to Texas too. The Pac-12 as a whole is really good when USC is really good. Not just Oregon, not a Washington, but if USC specifically, along with other teams that compete, if USC is really good, the Pac-12 as a whole is going to be good because you're going to get more TV exposure. You're going to get more primetime exposure, and people on the East Coast and everywhere else are going to see them play on TV, and you want to go. And hold, please. And the reason why I say USC specifically is because they're that historic brand over maybe Oregon or UW or like a Stanford or something like that. I think Texas fans think the same way. Iowa State can go 7-2 and make a playoff push if they can. But I think the Big 12 as a conference succeeds when a team like Texas or a team like Oklahoma is the figurehead and they're at the top. So for Texas fans to have that arrogant belief that the conference as a whole is better when we're number one in the conference, and Texas deserves to be beating a team like Iowa State or should expect to beat a team like Iowa State every year, I think that's kind of warranted. But I kind of just wanted to see what you guys thought about this, because it was a very provocative conversation that I saw on Twitter that a lot of people were very upset about. And I almost sent you guys the link just so you could read through it, but I figured that I'd kind of propose it here just to see what you think. And then in our group chat, if you guys want, I could go find it and send it to you guys again. But it was a very a heated discussion on Twitter.
I'll say this, Josh, you brought up a minute ago, the IU basketball thing. I grew up in Indiana, Hoosiers fan, still am, basketball, football, whatever it may be. Still to this day in 2020, they are clinging and holding on to the 5 championships they won before the 90s, right? They've been a good team in years past. They had some high draft picks. They were a good team. They made it to the Elite Eight. They made it Sweet 16s, all that through March Madness basketball-wise, but they haven't made it over the hump. And when you talk about this, I find it in a very similar scenario to what Texas is going through right now. Is they have some good players, they have a decent coach, they have the exposure, but they just haven't been able to produce good results consistently. And so when you said that and brought it up, bringing up Indiana basketball, it was a perfect similar example for me as well. So, and no, I'm not an IU lacrosse fan. IU does not have a men's lacrosse team. They have a women's lacrosse team. But it's a very, like I said, it's a very similar comparison.
Are you an IU women's lacrosse fan?
I am. I'm an IU women's swimming team. Go Lily King. Lily King's great. She was an Olympian. And other sports of that nature. Club hockey. IU baseball. Go Tracy Smith.
Hey, Toby just wants to see Lyle flying in a plane going back to Phoenix, excited to be going back to ASU. That's all Toby wants to see.
That's all I want to see.
What?
Yeah, I don't know where this came from, but sure.
Yeah, I'll be flying on a plane to Arizona again soon, so we'll
Word?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, yeah.
Christmas, New Year's, come on out for Christmas.
Hey, Amber and I will meet you there, but we're gonna stop at Coney's first because Garrett sent me a Snapchat today of him having Coney's, and I've been to
Arizona twice in the last 2 months, and I haven't been to Coney's once. I even golfed right next to it and was so disappointed.
Dude, he sent me that, and I literally responded with, "Wow, this is the best thirst trap I've ever seen." He said, "Sorry, buddy."
All right, guys, time for the Q&A now. Again, if you have a question you'd like to have answered, you guys can donate to the super chat. It helps support the show. This way, your question comes up in a nice shiny color, and we'll answer your question. We're going to go to Twitter first, because as always, again, if you follow us on Twitter at the HH_, you get top priority.
Don't lose short round's question in there, by the way.
I already did. I don't see it because
you want me to pull it up right now because it's
we're going to go to our Twitter questions first because that's the advantage you get for following us on Twitter. That's at the HH_. This one I don't have the screenshot of it, but it comes from our man Andrew Coster. Guys, you're stuck on a deserted island and you have no signal, you have no internet. Now the good thing is this island that's in the middle of nowhere provides unlimited food, so you're chilling there. So you don't have to resort to eating each other. However, it only allows you to keep 3 items with you. So you got unlimited food, you're chilling, but you can only bring 3 items to this deserted island. What are you bringing?
No service, so like no electronics?
Nope.
However, what if you download your music before you're on this deserted island on your phone so you can have music going?
Well, your phone's going to die.
What if my other things like a charger? a solar charger, Josh.
Generator.
No, a solar charger. Go ahead. I'll let you go.
Are we all kicking it together or no?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We all get 3 things. We're all kicking it together.
All right. Well, I'm going to give you guys all a choice to just pick. I'm going to pick one of your objects for you. So baseball glove. Taking a baseball glove.
What about a baseball?
Does that count or no? Does that have to be separate?
No, it's an item. So those are 2 separate items.
Okay. So I'll do the baseball glove and the baseball, and I hope that you get. I hope that you guys don't just, hang me out to dry with this one. So baseball and baseball gloves. So there's my 2. And I will go with let's go with a hydro flask. Portable.
Yeah, but he said it provides us with all the food and everything. So
stuff's got to stay cold, huh?
Where are you going to get the ice?
It's going to contain it in the hydro flask. All right, fine, come back.
Lyle, your turn.
Well, I guess I got to bring my baseball glove because Josh is bringing a baseball and a baseball glove. But I feel like some logic has to go into this. I'll bring the glove. I'm fine to sit on an island and have a catch for a few hours, but I feel like a fueled airplane and a pilot might help at some point too. So those are my 2.
I'm going to say, how big's the island? Because can you take off the plane? What about a helicopter?
No. It's going to be one of the ones that lands in the water.
In the water. Fuel the airplane and a pilot. That could be no joke, one of the best answers Lyle's ever had for any of our Q&As.
We could fly it. One of the questions or one of the comments was that you fly back to Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a passenger.
No, you are the pilot.
Yeah, that's the room next door.
Lyle would be safe in the air if he was the pilot of a plane. He would go the speed limit in the air. He wouldn't try to get there ahead of time. He'd make sure he lands perfectly. It'd be fantastic.
And then he'd check the oil when he's done landing.
Oh, yeah.
No tickets, no crashes, nothing.
Nothing. You know what? Since you guys brought gloves, and I think Blake's going to bring a glove, there are 4 of us. So I'm going to bring I'm not going to bring a bat. We could just make a bat out of wood.
Yes.
Use what you have on the island.
There you go.
I'll bring a solar phone charger so we can, have music and something going, because I think being on the island just quiet would be weird. I'm going to bring my phone that has music already downloaded onto it because I planned ahead crashing on a deserted island. And I'm guessing like clothes and everything are just sort of included, like change of clothes, right? Would you think? Oh.
Sure.
And one of Steve's sun hats.
Yes, one of my dad's son hats.
Yes.
My
All right,
third
well-
item will be a pool floaty.
Oh, pool floaty would be a good one.
Yeah, well,
Let's
my
go
first
Blake Race.
one, because she's over there cooking dinner for me right now, I'm bringing my
Your
girlfriend.
Wow.
She said absolutely not, so I guess I'm not right there. So since I can't bring her, I'm bringing a baseball glove. I'm bringing a baseball bat so that we can get a game going. I can hit everyone grounders. And third, I'm bringing a jet ski so I can get the hell off this island and get back to land. Somewhere else, not land on the island, but somewhere else.
How
So
big is this island? Like this? These are the important questions.
who knows? All right, guys,
All
let's
right,
move
move on.
out. Fun one from Coster. Hopefully he's in here so we heard it. Our man Anthony, did you guys graduate college already?
Josh?
Yes, I did. My diploma's here. ASU did not screw me over this time. And yes, diploma has arrived, boys.
Yes, we all graduated from college.
We all did. I'm going to save short rounds for the very end, so I'm just reading it now so that way I remember what it is so we can get to some other ones right here. Josh, a question in regards to you from Awesome Cards. What is Josh's favorite dog breed?
Oh, I mean, I don't know if I have a favorite breed. My dog is a Belgian Malinois mix, so she looks like a small version of a German Shepherd. So I'll go with that for the time being.
Well, I'll jump in here too because, I like dogs. My old neighbor used to have a German Shepherd Husky mix, and it was the coolest looking dog I've ever seen.
Lyle, what's your favorite dog breed?
Very funny. I've been thinking about this recently. Like the way the state of the world thinks about people that like versus don't like dogs. I think it's like the most ridiculous
I
thing in
hate
the world.
cats, and no one gives me shit for hating cats.
What's
Why do you
the
hate
difference?
cats?
I'm allergic to them.
Like, if you don't like dogs, say, like, what's the difference between that and not liking a certain hobby or travel location? Or
Because
like,
that
what's the
makes you a
difference?
horrible person.
Yeah, honestly,
Why,
Lyle,
though?
It's not even, it's not even worth
Dogs
debating.
are legit man's best friend.
What does that make you, Lyle? Huh?
He's not
You
a woman, not a
emasculated?
man.
I'm just saying, like it's great if people like dogs because so many people do, and it brings so many people like joy. But if you don't, I feel like you can just be like, yeah, that's fair. That's your opinion. Like the way people treat it these days is ridiculous.
dogs? Is there a reason?
Yeah,
No,
what's the
honestly,
reason you don't
what's
like
the
dogs?
reason?
Don't give us like a as a reason. Like that's not a reason because I know that's what you do.
I don't know. I like as a kid, I never liked being jumped on by dogs. I can tell you that. Maybe that just stuck all this time. I think also having to take care of a dog is like a no for me. So
Would you
no
like
dogs, no kids, no girlfriend?
goldfish?
goldfish sounds nice. I'm kidding. All right.
All right, boys, we're going to have to rework this question to see how we can make this happen. So we got Lane Kiffin, we got Mike Leach, and we got Ed Orgeron. How about we have
Fun times.
how about we have
Just F, marry, kill. Just go with it.
all right, well, let's get this. Oh boy, someone else.
Hang on, Blake. Can you be full screen so you could do that so I can turn it into a GIF of you drinking water?
I'm good. I'll do that another time. Guys, have at it.
Friend, best friend, not best friend.
Yeah. All right. So friend, Lane Kiffin. He's a good-looking dude. He's probably pretty funny. Why not? I guess I'll marry Coach O because I don't know now.
You said Lane Kiffin's a good-looking dude. You're gonna marry Coach O?
I just feel all right. You know what? We are going to dude, how could you not though? Like it's such a good question. Like I don't know where to go with it. Oh man,
I'll give you my answer right now. I'm getting rid of Mike Leach. I'm marrying Coach O, and Lane Kiffin and I are gonna have a good old time.
Oh God.
What Brady said for me.
Yeah, I think I'm going down the same. I'm down the same route with you guys.
Yeah, that was going to be mine. So
All right, guys. This one comes from J Jobs. A team outside the top four with the best chance to win the national championship. So not just
Florida and
cracking, not
Texas
just
A&M.
cracking the playoff, guys. The best chance to win the Natty. I'll kick things off right now. I'm going to go with Florida.
Florida.
Because they can score like crazy. Yeah. I think they're the only one. A&M, no chance. Cincinnati, potentially, but they have to get the respect from the committee first. And right there, sorry, a lot of going on right now. Our man Steven comes in. Iowa State might be a little too high in the college football playoff. What do you guys think of Iowa State rank? What the ranking is compared to Oklahoma's ranking? I mean, I think Oklahoma and Iowa State are both great Big 12 teams. I just think both of them are too high. I think Iowa State, I think they should probably be ahead of Oklahoma just because I think Iowa State, they have some better wins. I think Iowa State maybe should be at like 12 or 13. Oklahoma should be like at 15.
They also beat Oklahoma already. So if the committee cares about head-to-head, they should be
There you
ahead
go.
of Oklahoma, which is something that we talked about earlier, and clearly they value that when it comes to A&M and Florida. I think Iowa State's fine. I think realistically, with how good of a team they actually are, is number 9 where they deserve to be. Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. He is far from an elite quarterback. Breece Hall is a really good running back. They've got Charlie Kohler. He's really good too. But are they the number 9 team in the country in a normal season at 7-2? I'd say probably not. But I think with how crazy this season has been, I think number 9's fine. Oklahoma's explosive, but I've said this week in and week out. They've been playing better football. I'm just not sold. Like,
yeah,
I think they have a very good, because they can play Oklahoma in the conference title, correct?
Yeah.
And I think they can win. And I think they could win convincingly. And then that would completely change my opinion. Like, I think it's possible just because of how this Oklahoma team has been this year, where they don't look good, but then get a huge blowout win. So I don't know. They're very strange.
All right, guys, we got a fun one now. This comes from Hunter. He's going to be at the Coastal game on Saturday. So I guess they have limited fans there, I think 20, 25%. What should I try to do to get on ESPN or College Game Day? So Game Day might be tough.
Right?
Game Day won't have fans. They're going to be doing it inside the stadium like they have for weeks
Sitting there in the
past.
stands, what should he do? I saw some, what was it? Was it the Bears-Packers game the other night where someone like had a sign that said like, I love pizza?
No,
And-
it's deep dish pizza sucks. And I stand by that statement.
So what should he put on his sign in order to be picked up by the cameras? Don't put this sign on TV.
Yeah.
And then below it,
That's not bad.
and then below it, put this logo.
And then put the logo right there. But make your sign, don't put this sign on TV, and just have it be that. Unless you guys have some other creative ones. Lyle, I'm sure you have thousands of creative ideas. What should he put on his sign?
as somebody who's a sign maker himself, well, once, but I'm trying to think. What should you put on your sign? What about just follow the HH show on Twitter?
I'm sure
Harambe was innocent.
Well,
orange jelly sucks.
oh, that's a good one.
Orange marmalade is overrated. Do that.
All right, guys, this is a fun one. This comes from Miller. He hits us up with the super chat. Again, if you have any questions like this you want us to answer, there's a lot of comments going on. Hit us up in the super chat. That guarantees your question to be put on the board. Miller wants to know, what coach are you picking that is retired at this point to be your coach of your team?
Does Bob Stoops count?
He's not coaching. Well,
Yes, he is.
Well, apparently now he is today, assistant. But yeah, he's retired.
No, he's out. He's legit out of retirement to coach because Oklahoma had some coaches down with COVID, so they're having Bob Stoops come back to coach for a bit.
I think the easy choice for me, growing up an SC fan, would be Urban Meyer. I think that is not a legitimate aspiration for USC fans. I will leave it at that. I don't want to go into some of the delusion that's there. I don't think Urban Meyer will be the next head coach at USC, assuming that the current guy is let go. But I guess if we're picking somebody that's retired, I would want Urban Meyer.
Urban was going to be mine. Just because he's so fresh out of college football. Like, he hasn't lost his touch. He was still winning games at Ohio State. That was going to be mine.
Can I pick someone who hasn't coached in college football?
Yes.
I'm going to go Kirk Herbstreit. I think Kirk Herbstreit would make a great coach.
I like it. I'm going to go with Lou Holtz just so I can see him on the sideline going, just so we can see him on a week-to-week basis trying to lead a football team.
Like
I was gonna say Lee Corso.
Mark May is his assistant coach.
no,
Yes.
no. What about Pete Carroll?
He's not retired.
He's out of college football.
Touche.
All right.
Lou Holtz and Mark May would lose every game.
No, dude, they'd win. They wouldn't call plays. They'd be too busy going back and forth between each other. All right, guys. It looks like no more questions, so I'm going to go to the short round one from the very beginning. I think it's too far up for me to find it. Unfortunately, it is. Again, if they have any last-second questions, you guys can hit us up with the super chat. In
Short round said, just tell him to repost the question and he'll do it again.
Well, so. I remember what the question was. Here it is right here as well. Guys, would rather have robots or aliens take over the world?
I would go with robots because you can just turn them off. Just turn them off. Just spray them with water, right? Tell me those sci-fi movies where they keep learning from the humans. Oh, I bet they could. I bet they could. But nobody ever poured water on them, did they? Just like that. Boom. Short circuit. We get the world back. No more robots. Why didn't they do that in any of those movies? Can anybody explain that to me? Dude, we have fire departments everywhere. And they've got massive hoses with insane water pressure that you should not drink out of. Why not turn the fire hoses onto the robots that take over the world? We have planes in California that fight forest fires by dropping tons of water, literally tons and gallons of water onto flames. Just do that to the robots.
It's because people in movies aren't smart. You've seen that Geico commercial. It's like, well, why don't we just get in the running car? It's like, are you crazy? Let's go behind the chainsaws. Like,
look at what Short Round just said in the comments. He said Josh is a simpleton. Clearly, the robots have figured out how to make themselves waterproof.
Well, okay,
then turn up the water pressure. Then, all right, Short Round.
Or you just turn them off, like Josh said. But the other part of it too is
power button. Where they run on batteries? Like, what are they going to be plugged in? Just unplug them.
Yeah, and also
you can only
like
go 6 feet at a time.
Maybe, hear me out. Maybe you'd have a chance to have like civil discussions with robots since they're programmed to speak a bunch of languages. Like, you're not going to be able to communicate with aliens.
How big are the aliens?
Have you guys ever seen when Mars attacks?
No,
they're like this big.
No, they've got like the brains or whatever, and they're inside like this glass bulb, and they take over the world, and then they kill all the aliens by driving around town in a pickup truck and just turning up the volume of their music, and it makes all their brains explode, and that's how they win. It's like a horrible 80s movie.
Love it. Josh brought up the great idea. Robots, Lyle, another great one. But I think it'd be kind of awesome to just run around with like a shotgun, kind of like in a zombie movie, and just, attack the aliens. But do the aliens bring their alien weapons? That's another big question. I don't know.
Out of context comments in the live chat right now. I don't even know what's going on over there.
All right, let's
final question, guys. Connor Benson.
Oh, hang on. They're 8 foot tall. Apocalypse. They're 8 foot tall humanoid aliens. Oh, I'm going robots.
Which of the four of us is surviving a zombie apocalypse?
Not Lyle. Sorry, buddy. I'm going not Lyle.
Okay.
Like, we give Lyle some trash on the show, but like, I think Lyle with a bat in his hand could do pretty well.
I just don't know.
Put some nails through it. Come on. Or
I don't have like the fight instinct and like the fight or flight.
Why.
So that's. So I don't know.
I'm not saying Lyle would necessarily be
zombie has Notre Dame losses. Then you'll just start banging them. Just pretend like it's your door on a Notre Dame game where you're just banging them, just like that.
I think Brady could.
Yeah.
I don't know. Brady would pull some strange idea out of his rear end and it would work. And then he'd survive.
I'll just end up in like the White House bunker or something.
Oh, flex.
Yeah, big flex.
I didn't say anything. I'll just find my way into it. You guys can come too if you want.
We have about 10 minutes left, so we got, I think, 16 games to go through. So aside from the big games, no real explanations needed for this. We can haul through in about 10 to 12 minutes or so. Guys, it's getting close now. The leaderboard. Lyle now holds a 2-point lead. My strategy last week of picking opposite teams of Lyle worked because a lot of them came through. Brady's at 99. Josh is at 96, so he's still in this. We got a few weeks few weeks left, so we got a lot of games to get to. So, guys, let's kick things underway. Let me rearrange this so that way it goes in order. All right, guys.
Hang on. Are we going in a different order again this week?
Yeah.
No, we're okay. Let's have.
What about
Lyle.
going reverse? Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
There we go.
Who's going first, Lyle? Lyle Blake.
Lyle, you're going. What's the order this week?
It's this. This is the order.
Lyle, Josh, Blake, me.
So we're going counterclockwise.
Someone
the
just
same
pick
order?
a damn
Blake,
team.
you're the host. Answer the questions or tell us
It
what
goes,
we're doing.
it goes based off of where we are on the screen, like it does every week. Top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. It ain't hard. But hey, I consider you just got your ASU degree 2 weeks ago. It's as expected, dog. I
Blake,
understand.
you're like 24 and just graduated. What the hell are you talking about?
Hey. Don't make my girlfriend laugh in front of me. How dare
She
you.
does that all the time, Blake. Don't you worry.
That's true.
She laughs in front of you, at you, because of you. A lot of reasons.
Yeah. All right. Louisiana at Appalachian State.
You're muted, Lyle.
Lyle's muted.
Give me Louisiana.
Yeah, I like. Oh wait, no, sorry, forgot. Sorry.
You fool!
Oh boy.
Oh my god. So you know what? You can go. I'll go last. It'll go Lyle, Blake, Brady, me. We'll go counterclockwise. Just go.
Because I've never gone third.
Huh?
Just go.
Blake, it's you.
You go. I'll go last. If we go counterclockwise, it's the order of all of our state. Oh Jesus!
Fine.
I've got App State. How's that? I've got App State.
All right, and I've got Louisiana.
I've got App State.
All right. Awesome. Texas at Kansas State.
Give me Texas and a bounce back. I'm
No,
going.
Josh, you're third. You're
I'm third now.
Lyle's first.
Texas will bounce back and get a win. Texas.
I'm going Texas.
Brady.
Blake, this is what happens when we just mix up the order for the third week in a row, and our boxes are hopping from each corner to corner.
I'm going to go with Texas in this one. All right, did we all go?
Yes.
Yep. All right, hang on. Here's the order. Lyle, Josh, Brady, Blake. Done.
Okay.
Counterclockwise.
There we
why
go.
do you change it afterwards?
Because it goes in order.
I agree with Blake on this one, actually. All right, Texas or Oklahoma State, TCU. You guys are giving me cancer.
Give me the Cowboys. They'll win on the road.
I'm about to go, okay? Just so we all know. I've got Oklahoma State on the road, Blake.
I've got Oklahoma State as well. On the road, Blake.
I got Oklahoma State on the road, Blake. Nebraska at Purdue.
Purdue at home. Boilermakers.
Purdue at home, Boilermakers.
Purdue at home, Boilermakers.
Purdue at home, Boilermakers. Memphis at Tulane.
I'll take Memphis.
Tulane is actually favored, but I'll take Memphis.
I actually had to think about this one, but I'll take Memphis.
I'll take Tulane. They're going to come out with the victory. Arkansas at Missouri.
I mean, Arkansas has played better than expected this year, right? I'll take another road team. Give me Arkansas.
Vandy isn't good, but
Later, Mark.
Huh?
You'll argue like an old married couple. Bye.
See ya.
Okay, bye, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Vandy isn't good, but Mizzou looked pretty good last week. They've also won 4 of 5, so I'll take the Tigers.
Yeah, I'm going Mizzou as well. I think they get I mean, last week was just good all around for Mizzou, so I'm going to go Mizzou again this week.
I like what Lyle said. Arkansas, they've been surprisingly decent this year, and Felipe Franks looks like a formidable quarterback. So I'm going to go with the Razorbacks on the road. Indiana at Wisconsin.
Brady said it earlier. I think this is going to be insanely low scoring. I'm going to take Indiana. I think it's very close, but Hoosiers pull it out.
This has 14-9 written all over it. I think Scotty minus 14 is kind of absurd, even with Michael Penix Jr. out. But Brady, I hate to do it. I'm taking Wisco. They got to get a little bit of love after the Arizona State Sun Devils embarrassed the Badgers on the ice this past weekend. So take that, Scotty. Sun Devils here for that Big 12, Big 10 regular season title once they get back on track. But I'll take Scotty on the gridiron this week.
What did they play on ice, Josh?
Lacrosse.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yes.
Some stick puck. Got it. I actually had Wisconsin written down in my notes that I was going to pick them, but I'm gonna jump over. I'm gonna switch to Indiana. I think Jack Tuttle is a very good, accurate quarterback. And there was a lot of discussion at the beginning of the year who would get the starting job. So I'm gonna go Indiana. Same boat with Lyle on this one. He didn't have to apologize for picking Wisconsin this week.
I get that, Penix is out, but the fact that they're 14-point underdogs, I get it's out Wisconsin. I'm taking Indiana plus.
It's not like there are fans at the game. If there are fans there, I'd hammer
I'm
Wisconsin.
taking Indiana. As of right now, it's 14. I'm praying that it can get to 15, 16, or 17. But again, plus 14 is an absolute gift. Why not? Let's write up the fun of this. I'm gonna pick Indiana to pull off the upset in this game. Maryland at Michigan.
Man, this is a miserable week of games. I'm gonna take Michigan at home.
I think this is going to be a weird game. But give me Johnny H and the boys to edge past the Terps.
Where's your trophy?
Oh, my milk?
Yeah.
Pretend there's milk.
I saw what Maryland's defense was able to do last week, and that answer was nothing. They allowed Indiana, who had negative 16 rushing yards against Ohio State, put up over 250 on Maryland. So Maryland's defense is very porous. That means there's a lot of holes in it, and it's not very good. So I'm going Michigan.
It's just a big old sieve. Anything gets through.
I don't know what Maryland team are we going to get. Are we going to get the team that scored 3 against Northwestern, the team that scored, 3 this past weekend against Indiana? Or are we going to get the team that was putting up 40 points like in back-to-back weeks? I don't know. I'm going to go with Michigan. Just why not? Hawaii at San Jose State that's going to be played at Hawaii.
Way to go, Santa Clara.
Played at Hawaii, but San Jose State is still the better team, so give me San Jose State.
The Spartans game against Boise got canceled, so they are still 4-0. And I'm going to take San Jose State, even though they are no longer playing home games in Santa Clara County.
I am going Hawaii at home on the road at home against San Jose State. At home on the yeah.
San Jose State's been a pleasant surprise, but I don't think this momentum continues, especially after having this past weekend canceled. Hawaii's been sneaky good this year, so I like Hawaii on the road at home. Washington State at USC. We got some Sunday. Have they announced the time for this one? Is it another 9 a.m.?
It got moved up. So
it's 9 p.m.
On Sunday?
9 p.m. Eastern.
Oh, on Sunday?
I think it was supposed to be at 7, and they might have moved it up.
So we got some competition with Sunday Night Football, but I think everyone would rather watch Washington State at USC on Sunday night. So we have this on Sunday night.
As long as
7:30 Eastern. So what would that be? 5:30, 4:30 where you guys are? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take USC. I mean, they're undefeated. Dolores look good, but Washington State as a whole just doesn't have what it takes to hang with the Trojans.
I think SC might start a little bit slow. So football operations at USC resumed this morning. So it looks like this game's going to be played. USC is going to have almost a full week of practice, it looks like. I think they might start slow, but I think the Trojans win convincingly at home.
I do too. I think USC is going to get a pretty solid win. They're going to be competing with the Broncos and Chiefs on Sunday Night Football, a thrilling matchup there. So who knows? They could actually have some decent viewership for this Sunday college football game. So I'm going to go USC.
Yeah, SC, not even close. Oregon at Cal.
Flex that game, first off, Brady, in regards to your Chiefs-Broncos comment. But back to college football. No way Oregon loses twice. I'll go with the Ducks.
It's time,
twice in a row.
Yeah, it's time for the Ducks to show what they can actually do. And last week, I think I told you guys this in our group chat. If Oregon State was a pick'em last week, I would have picked Oregon State. And I told you guys that going into the game. And it just happened to work out like that. They have holes, and Oregon State exploited them. I mean, the defense is porous. It's a sieve. But I don't think they lose to Cal on the road. I'll take Oregon to get a big bounce back.
Yeah, I'm going Oregon bounce back on the road against Cal. I think is this Cal game being played at home?
It should be. It's not in Santa Clara County. It's in Oakland, Alameda, I believe. So.
Got it. So I'm gonna go. I'm going Oregon on the road.
Yeah. If I picked against the Ducks, I would be sleeping on the couch tonight. So I'm going to go with the Ducks.
I really wanted you to pick against them and just get smacked in the back of the head from off camera.
It would have happened once the show ended. Florida Atlantic at Georgia Southern.
I'll take Florida Atlantic on the road.
I'll take Georgia Southern at home.
I was making my picks earlier while the younger, skinnier, more handsome version of me was sitting in the studio with me, our good pal Griffin. And I actually said out loud while looking at the picks, Georgia Southern, because why, Lyle?
Because why not?
Because why not? Georgia Southern.
Georgia Southern, because why not?
No, Blake.
Houston at SMU, guys.
SMU's coming off this loss, but I'm going to take SMU to get the win over Houston.
It should be a good game. Houston's been very iffy this year. I think they're a little bit bigger of a team. I think I saw that somewhere. I like SMU to bounce back.
You know, Josh said SMU, and if this game were being played in New York, it'd be pronounced Houston. Did you know that? Houston. That's a part of New York is Houston. I'm going to go SMU. I think SMU gets a good win at home.
SMU's the weirdest team. I mean, 1 week they look like a top 25 team. The next week they're losing to a 2-win East Carolina team by 40 when you're favored by 2 touchdowns. And, you know, someone has SMU money line that they desperately need to win, but I digress. I'm going to go with SMU to have a bounce back, hopeful game this week. Guys, this is a fun one. We know who's winning it. The spread is currently 29 points. So Alabama minus the 29 or LSU plus the 29.
I think this should be our money pick of the week. What do you think about that, Blake? Our fan score projector?
Score?
Yeah.
There you go.
We need to remember to tweet it out this week.
Yeah.
Well, I like Bama with the points, and this game's going to be a blowout, but it really says something about the week of games when the most excited thing the thing I'm most excited to watch in the slate of games this weekend is not even a game itself, but it's a matchup, and it's in this game to see Stingley go up against Devontae Smith. That's what I'm most excited to watch because, I mean, that's just about the most exciting thing going on this weekend. In terms of this game, give me Bama with the spread.
So I started to look at some of the numbers in this game, and I was actually surprised to see that LSU was scoring more points per game than I actually thought they were. 30.4 points per game. The problem here, guys, is other teams don't throw a whole lot toward Derek Stingley Jr., so they throw at everybody else. And the defense gives up 30.3 points per game, which is 0.1 points more or less than they score per game, which is not too good. I'm going to take I feel like 29. It went up from 29 to 29 and a half right before we did this show. I don't think that changes a whole lot. I still think Bama. I don't think LSU covers this week. It's hard to predict a blowout this bad, but I don't think they cover.
LSU this past weekend showed they weren't confident with who they had at quarterback. They had a carousel of quarterbacks, you could call it, and I think they had 2 guys consistently rotating and maybe even a third thrown in there. And with Terrace Marshall opting out this past week for the rest of the season, I think that hinders LSU even more. I'm gonna hammer Alabama minus 29 in this game.
Yeah, Bama rolls. LSU, I don't know how LSU is going to score more than 10 points in this game. Bama's going to beat them by at least 40. But, guys, the best game of this weekend, which it sucks because I don't know if they can flex it this late. It's at 11 a.m. Pacific on ESPNU. Although this is the game day game, this game's on ESPNU, so a lot of people aren't even going to get to watch it. And that's Liberty at Coastal Carolina. Again, this is the best game of the weekend, in my opinion.
You're muted, Lyle.
Yes, good point, Lyle.
I did it again. America's team stays undefeated. Give me Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, a good thing I didn't start talking yet. Look, I thought Liberty was going to win last week. They did not. That was a pick.
Liberty did win. They beat UMass by about 50.
Yeah, no, 2 weeks ago they lost to NC State, and that was what I thought was a surefire pick, and it did not work out that way. I think the Chanticleers stay undefeated. For me, America's team. My adopted team is IU, which I also picked against this week. So I'm going to shift that pick over to Coastal, and I'm taking the Chanticleers as a sign of respect for keeping a World Series title out of Tucson, Arizona a few years ago. So thank you for that. I'll take the Chanticleers.
I like that. Like I said earlier, the Fighting Sam Weeder halves, all the 5-6 foot of him. I'm going to rock with CJ Marable, who I called him Torrance earlier because that's, his real name, but I just got confirmation that he goes by both, so I don't feel so bad leaving Torrance instead of CJ. So I'm going to go with Coastal Carolina, the Chants, this week at home with game day. It's going to be a rowdy, fanless atmosphere there, or limited fan atmosphere at Coastal Carolina. So is Coastal Carolina the best team in the state? Yes or no?
Oh, yeah, they're better than Clemson, without a doubt.
I agree.
Without a doubt.
They don't have a loss. They don't have a loss.
I'm going with Coastal on this one. It's going to be a fun one. Guys, worst of the worst, battle of the two winless teams. This is a disturbing, horrifying game, but it must be played. Bowling Green at Akron.
Akron's going to be zipping it around the field this weekend. Give me Akron to win.
So, guys, Bowling Green State University has a hockey team that was in the NCAA Midwest Regional 2 years ago. Did not play against ASU because they got wrecked by Minnesota Duluth in the first game, and then ASU lost, so it's not like it mattered anyway. But that's where Hall of Fame broadcaster Mike Emmerich went, and Emmerich just retired. He just published a book that I will be getting in the next couple of weeks, and when I get that book, I'm going to read that book, guys. So I'm taking the Fighting Doc Emmerichs and Bowling Green.
All right. One of my good friends from home, she was a two-time MAC champion swimmer at Akron.
Does that mean she won 4 times?
No, it's just like it's 2-time. You say it twice because she was a 2-time winner.
Oh, I thought you meant she was a 2-time winner 2 times.
At least I know for sure she was 2-time MAC. She may have won 3. She's got a cool ring, though. Anyways, she went to Akron. She was a swimmer. So I'm going to go with the Zips. The Fighting Jackie Pashes. Go Zips.
I'm going to go with the Zips. I don't think anything. I'm just going to pick Akron. Both these teams suck. Guys, we have Arizona State action this week for the first time in almost a month. For now, UCLA at Arizona.
State at Arizona State. What? You went to school there, Blake.
Hey.
You went to school there. You are no better than ESPN.
It's been a long show.
It is December 1st, and ASU has still not played their first home game. They're going to be back in action this weekend, and they were so close to beating SC a couple weeks ago. Problem here is UCLA's actually looked pretty good. Like, if I hadn't picked Stingley as my star of the week this week, I would have taken Demetric Felton, because that guy, I mean, he does it all. He catches the ball, he runs the ball. I mean, and he does both so efficiently that that's a hard guy to stop. I'm going to take ASU in a very, very close game. I'm going to say Jaden Daniels leads a drive late, game-winning touchdown, ASU wins.
I honestly think ASU is a far superior team, and it's disappointing that ASU has not played very many games. I think that UCLA's offense has shown that it can do some damage. I think the defense is a liability, and I think that ASU's offense is a lot better than it was last year. I'm going to show some love to the station that we were on for 2 years, and I'm going to tune into Blaze Radio.
Lyle, hold it up.
Show off that shirt, Lyle. Blaze Radio, KASC, Blaze Radio ASU. I believe our boy Big M, Matt Berner, is calling the game this week for Blaze Radio. So I'm going to tune in to Big M, and I'm going to listen to a big dub for ASU.
Tall
Close
M.
I do think it'll be close, but, big dub for the sake of Big M.
I think ASU gets a win here. I think it's much needed, especially after what happened to them week 1 with USC, the fatal collapse in the last 2.5-3 minutes of the game. It just seemed like every ounce of momentum they had just sort of evaporated. So I'm going to go with ASU in a bounce back win from what seemed to be 6.5 years ago, and then when they played their first game of the season against USC. So I'm going with the Sun Devils at home. Going to be really interested to see what Sun Devil Stadium looks like without fans, having spent so much time there over the last couple of years. It's going to be pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Sun Devils too. I think they're going to be hungry for a win. They're probably still stinging after that heartbreaking loss from, a few years back. So I'm going to go with the Sun Devils in that one. And yeah, guys, that wraps up this this episode of the Harris Highlights Show. Any parting words, as always, before we head out for the next week?
I hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, no, you don't. You let them have the Thanksgiving that they had. If they had a good one or a bad one, that's on them.
Hey, thanks, Petros.
That was awesome.
For the love of whatever you worship, please play football this week, ASU and USC, please. Like last week, after Friday, after Notre Dame and North Carolina and the Texas-Iowa State game, it was the first time in a long time I was not looking forward to college football on Saturday. So, because those
It
two
was kind of
games
a depressing weekend of college
it
football.
really was. So ASU and USC, please play football.
Well, hey, I will say this. Lyle gets a double dose of his favorites for this broadcast. It's Aaron Goldsmith and Brady Quinn on the broadcast for ASU. So There you go, Lyle.
That sounds like a good tandem to me.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. So as always, thanks guys for watching. Give this video a thumbs up. Drop a comment down below. Hit us up on Twitter at the HHShow_. Follow us on Instagram at Harris Highlight Show. You can support the show on Patreon, patreon.com/the Harris Highlight Show. Lots of cool behind the scenes benefits there. Yeah, guys, I think that's it. Again, any other parting thoughts before we head out? Aside from hopefully we get football this week.
Please play football this week.
Listening to this dude makes me depressed.
He's talking about somebody in the comments.
Oh.
No,
At least
I
I
thought you were
hope
talking about Blake. All right.
Well, there you go. All right, guys. For Josh Schaefer, Lyle Goldstein, Brady Klein, this has been Blake Harris from the Paragon at Monrovia in beautiful, Los Angeles, California. Thanks for watching. We're going to see all you guys right back here again next week.